Welcome to the Voice of Job Seekers podcast. This is Mark. You want to know more about me and what I do, go to the voiceofjobseekers.com. Of course, my co-host, boy, I was about to say Job Seeker Nation, but this is the Voice of Job Seekers podcast.
You got so many different properties going on. It's hard to keep track of it.
I know, right? But this is the Voice of Job Seekers podcast. Jack Kelly is my guest. You all know him because you hear his voice a lot on the podcast if we've done shows in the past. And since that's evergreen content, I like to let it flow into the regular podcast stream. So welcome to the show and welcome back to the show, Jack. Great to have you.
It's great to see you again. Great to chat.
Yes, absolutely. And I don't know if you guys can hear the music, but this is intended to intro music or ambiance music, but I'm going to shut it off so we can talk and so that everybody can hear. A lot of things going on. I think we could jump right into a lot of stuff, and hopefully people will follow you and follow me and follow the conversation as we continue it, because we never just talk about things one time. There's always a drag from even past shows that we've done, so we always allow for that. But we've got to talk, one of my number one items is talking about the big jobs that the Wall Street Journal has talked about. As Jack, and you've probably written a little bit about how there are companies that actually are posting jobs that are not really actively looking for workers. They're actually leaving them up for several months at a time one of the motives would be to give the impression that they're hiring, but they're really not, because I guess everybody needs a little bit of talent to go along with their company, and they don't want to chase them away completely. But I've got lots of questions outside of that, but it is setting a bad vibe throughout the sphere.
Can I give you the inside scoop? Can I give you
yes,
the inside?
absolutely.
All right, dude. So here's the inside scoop. This has been going on for years. I don't know why all of a sudden now it's getting attention, but it's been going on a long time. So no particular order. What happens is this, oftentimes. You have a bunch of different reasons. One is that, let's say your company isn't doing so well, you might put jobs out there to make it look like you're doing well. So if you see, and this isn't just from companies, you'll see this from recruiters as well, is that if you post these jobs, it goes, wow, this company must be doing really well. Look at all the jobs they have, all these openings. That's number one. Number two, they're really not looking to hire, but they want a pipeline for the future. So let's say right now, where things are all weird, what's going on in the economy, everyone's a little nervous, a little afraid, but they think maybe 3, 4 months from now, things will get better. So let's put out jobs so that this way we'll get a whole lot of candidates, because people have lost their jobs, people worry about their jobs. So you get a great pipeline. So then once things, God willing, get better, all of a sudden, now you have all these people just to hit the ground running instead of waiting to get candidates when everyone else is going after candidates. Then here's another thing that happens is that it used to be you have job boards and that's it, but you have all these aggregation sites. You have places like Indeed and CareerJet and Simply Hired and Glassdoor. And what they do is they spider all the different career sites from these companies, and then they aggregate the jobs. But then what's happened, sometimes they'll just stay on there because they aggregated. The company may not even know that they aggregated their job. So it's sitting there for months and months at a time, and they refresh it to make it look like it's real and up to date, but it's not. So then you look at these jobs that are aggregated that are going to be there, and job seekers get frustrated. Like, what the hell is going on? I see this job all the time. Send my resume in. Why did you get back to me? But there's another thing too, Mark. Another one is that with all the downsizing and layoffs, you have these workers who are taking on all this extra work, but they're not getting paid extra. So they're complaining, they're angry, they're upset. So what do? They post jobs to make it look, oh, we're going to get you help. Don't worry, Mark. We're going to get you help. So post jobs. So it makes it look like they're doing something, but they really, they really don't.
But there's two caveats to that. You probably read the story about the young woman who saw her job being posted for almost 3 times the amount that she was getting paid currently. So she applied and they told her that they weren't hiring her. These are the things that kind of, and I'm going to add my own little caveat here
Yeah.
too. It was not really a caveat, but this is a wrinkle. And I've written an article about this
Yeah.
recently about data privacy and all that. So, what is happening with all that data collection that the companies are creating this list through getting resumes? I'm sure not every company is using that just to
Mm.
have resumes on file for nothing. We're talking about thousands and thousands of resumes. But my conspiracy theory is, are they selling that information
I don't
to
know. That's really interesting. I don't know.
because I'm not putting it past anybody that they just have this data laying around, whether it's just email addresses or however people are sending it in. There could be a lot of information that on an
Mm.
application that could be used for to sell to somebody else who will be willing to buy it. And for some companies, they've collected thousands of names in at that particular time. Now, if you're just hiring, you're saying using it for hiring purposes, cool. But if you're not hiring but yet you have a posting, what are you doing with that information? I kind of wonder. Hmm.
And I think, yeah, they're probably using the data and selling it. How could they not? I'm sure they do some way where it doesn't seem like they're selling it, but they are selling it.
Because as you remember, the C
Yeah.
years ago had mandated you just can't get a resume and then throw it away. But if once you feel like you have a mind, if you will, full of information, people's information, people get really creative around economic times. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm just wondering, I put it out there. I put a little YouTube short that probably nobody. So actually more people saw it on LinkedIn than they did on YouTube. But I asked that question, where are they doing that information? I just wonder.
I
But
gotta
yeah,
find
yeah,
that out.
yeah, that's I'm going to be keeping my eye on that particular story to see how all this may unfold, or if anybody really wants to ask questions. Because I put it out there on LinkedIn, only one person actually chimed
Yeah.
in. But having said that, I think people want to think, oh, they're ignoring, they're going to do the right thing. And that's what we assume of employers. And that's bad on us. We should be asking, what are you doing with that information? Or how do you use
There should
that
be a
information?
disclaimer like, "Hey, we're not gonna use." You got a good point because
There,
everything else
there's
says there'll
sites
be a
that do.
disclaimer. They don't.
Some sites do have a disclaimer, but there's a lot of sites that don't have
Don't.
a disclaimer. And they don't have the scrutiny. The Better Business Bureau has online scam thing that they use in which, that they scrutinize it. I've got to look back to see how closely they do it, if it would include posting fake jobs, if you will.
Right.
But to me, I also term it job phishing in ways because you're posting a job, you're not real hiring, you're fishing for something. And even if it's just for a pipeline, and that's just plain wrong.
Yeah, there's a lot of gamesmanship that goes on in this place, huh?
Yeah, and they want people to come in to work hard, to be undistracted, and to be loyal. And yet, they're the big companies. They tend to gamify employment in a lot of ways. So, certainly, if their market zigs, that company's going to zag just to be different, or they got to keep up with the Joneses in the sense that if other companies are doing, why shouldn't we?
Yeah, and they just fall into that pattern,
Yeah,
you know?
it is. It's a very disturbing pattern. We're going to have to follow that, but I really think that people will have to, i- is from a practitioner point of view, people are going to really have to start having some conversations with people that work with the company before they apply so they can really find out or at least get some sense of idea. Are they really hiring or are they just pulling out legs? Are they really, all these things are beginning to come out where people will have to get more information about a company and scrutinize it in such a way that is it going to be worth my time applying to a company that says they have some jobs, but they really might not have it.
Yeah, it's so frustrating because what happens too, in addition to the fake jobs thing, is that you go on interviews and interview after interview and nothing happens. You get
Right.
ghosted, you don't get feedback. And then you wonder, do they have any intention at all in hiring, or
Right.
are they just using you to pick your brains to see, hey, Jack works at company ABC. I'm at company 123. We're similar. Let's get a sense of what goes on at the other company so we can learn a few things that's our competitors are doing.
Yeah.
It's,
Yeah.
it,
Yep, and making them do projects and
yeah,
making them do projects and making them do all this extra work. It is very interesting. Leslie, thank you very much for chiming in into the chat. She says it's a good practice to contact your local workforce solutions or one-stop office to verify employers. It isn't a bad idea. I understand the library also has some resources that might be useful along that vein. But all that to say is, yeah, I think that people that's good to verify if they're truly an employer. I'm wondering how far that resource will go in verifying, are they really hiring? You think about it, it's like you said, it's being gamified and people are being used pawns in the game. And that's what people are eventually applying to, is that idea that it must be me because
yeah,
everybody's not responding, but yet you could have applied to 7 to 10
yeah.
jobs in a week, which isn't the greatest way, but that's what most people do to find jobs. So they start applying to a lot of jobs until they get a little smart and find out there are better ways than just blindly shooting applications down the pipeline.
Can I give you an example of something what I see
Sure.
about the job? What'll happen at times, a company already has somebody in mind who they want to
Mhm.
hire, but they don't share that. You find this after the fact. So they
Right.
have someone who they like in their back pocket, but then they'll go out and interview to see, can we find someone better? Now, I don't begrudge them to see if they can find someone better, but it would only be fair if they would tell applicants, "Hey, I'm gonna interview Mark Dyson and Jack Kelly. Want you guys to know if you're interviewing, we have somebody we're strongly considering, and we might hire that person, but we're not 100% sure, so we wanna meet more people." Then you can go into the interview feeling, "Okay, I get it. I know the game. I understand what's happening, and I have to
Mhm.
do better than the person they like."
Yeah.
But if they don't say it, then you're just going through all 3, 4, 5, 6 interviews, and at the end, they're gonna go, "Ah, sorry, we're going with the internal." You're like,
Right.
why didn't you tell me? I would have maybe opted out not to go through this." And that's just like one of many things that happens that it's just, wow, you're just wasting their time.
Yeah. Yeah. One of my favorite songs from the '80s is "A Matter of Trust" by Billy Joel. You remember that song?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the cold remains of what began with a passionate start. That's the lyric that I
Yeah.
think of
Yeah.
when I think of that song, but it's true. It's becoming now, should I trust this employer?
Dude,
Should
I don't
I
think there's
trust this
trust anywhere
application?
anymore. Seriously, think about it, bro. Government, anybody. Is there any institution right now that you could say unequivocally, I trust if they say something, I trust them? I can't think of any really.
Nope, nope. I trust me. I trust you more than a lot of my past employers
It's
because
crazy.
it is crazy. And but I think that people are there's all this disruption because there's all this necessary minutia that's
Mhm.
involved where people are getting all this information from hearing what's going on in the news and it for a moment it stifles you and I can understand that
Right.
and just understand that feeling that people feel like man what do I really do since we've got all of these fake jobs out here we all have this information that's putting up as a smoke screen. What do I do? Only thing you could do is apply for job. But like I said, it's just better to target companies than to look through and start talking to people and having more conversations. They can tell you whether they're being hired or not because companies do want the referrals more than they do want to put out an ad. That's a whole lot cheaper.
Yeah, to piggyback on your point, I think that is helpful if you have a target company to find somebody who's there who you could pick their brains and say, "Hey, is this legit? Are they really hiring? Are they not hiring? They are
Mm,
hiring? What's the compensation range? Are they
right.
telling like the real range? Is this going to happen? Are they going to do layup?" Because that's another thing too.
Right.
How often have you seen on LinkedIn where someone puts up they're open to work and they were only working at the place for maybe 3 months, 4 months. Are you telling me those companies really didn't know that they were gonna lay off?
Yeah.
Maybe, but I don't know.
Yeah, and it's a shame because people are being led down a path of disappointment. You can't help but to think that and almost anticipate that if you keep applying the same ways, if you keep going about and going in blindly, but when really more you should be going in with your eyes wide open. So I really think that, yeah, I think it was really worth having this discussion about fake jobs. I think it's job fishing in the worst ways. It's catfish for jobs. And that's the way people are feeling. But I think too that we have a lot more disruption than we had to some degree, varying degree than we did at the beginning of the pandemic, because pandemic was sheltering and sheltering out. Here is this bureaucratic fear that we have in the sense that this market that more layoffs are beginning to trickle down to other industries other than tech. We're seeing that people are very concerned that even if they had the open to work banners that they're doing all the right things, that's taking them a while, and we're seeing even the staffing industry, the HR industry being completely disrupted in a sense. And I know that I had a VP of the staffing company contact me, somebody had been a friend of mine for a long time. He said he's been looking for 8 months
Yeah.
and he knows how to job search. If anybody, it's him. And he knows all the tricks of the trade, but it's just tough out there for everybody.
I think so. I think I don't know if you've noticed this too. There's a certain amount of months where you just saw big company after big company announcing layoffs, and then you just see that steady stream of, "Hey, I'm open for work. Hey, help me out." Lately, it's dried up, but there's still layoffs. I wonder if it's gotten to the point where people are now just so sanguine about it. Okay, this is the new reality. They're just like, whatever, not even trying to put that banner up or that
Right.
green banner saying open to
Mhm.
work, or they're just either maybe just taking time away, trying to get their mental health back together.
Yeah.
Just,
Yeah. And people should do what they feel they need to do
yeah,
to clear space and to get clarity about the job search. But it's better to tell people than not tell people. It's better to be talking to a lot of people than to try to go through the system the way that they want you to do first. Yeah, you got to apply to a job. Yeah, you got to fill out applications and whatever, but you don't have to fill out a bunch of applications as a lot of people actually do. Because, like I said before, first thing people do, they lose a job one day, then they're on all these sites next and say they applied to 50 jobs and they get it. Very few people will get it, but the majority of people won't get any response at all from applying to that many jobs. If they do, they're looking for commission sales and they're trying to train in new people. But that's it. And giving some people some calming affairs that there's a disruption every couple of years in the job market. Let's just face it. There's going to be, as technology evolves, as people change, and as we are seeing live, that the companies competing to follow whatever the latest trend is. It's going to be a lot of hiring, and you and I have talked about this, and companies are company are copycats is
yeah.
what I want to say. They follow whatever it is. So they start laying off because everybody else is start laying off. So people have to do that. And I think I can understand why it's hard for people to start trusting or start being really truly active before they apply, but they really should seek clarity first, get it out of your head, get your self-esteem in the right place where it should be, and go forward and still do the right things in finding jobs.
It's interesting you bring that up because I noticed, and it's so wild. I could point to the time where Elon Musk was on Twitter, just put Twitter, and he's bullying people, pushing them
Yeah.
away, letting them go. And then right afterwards, I'm not saying there's this like secret meeting somewhere, like some conference room, and they're like, "We're gonna
Right.
let's do this," but
You
one
got to flip a
like
switch.
one company after another. To your point about copycat, you saw Meta, Salesforce, Amazon, Microsoft,
Mhm.
Google, like on, and then like you pointed out, goes to Wall Street, goes to media. All these other companies were laying off, and it can't be coincidence. It's almost like Musk gave the green light to say, "Oh, it's socially acceptable to lay off people," and all these other executives said, "Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
we could let him go." And then what happens, I noticed too, Mark, is every time and check this out, every time a company, announces a layoff, their stock price goes up because
Yep.
investors are happy saying, "Yeah, you're cutting
Yep.
costs. We're gonna make more money on our stock." So it's so wild how this plays out.
Yeah. Yeah. And even some of these tech companies even told folks, said, we may even bring you back in a couple of months.
Would
I
you go
wonder
back?
how.
Like, what do you think about that?
That's like, wow. Like you said, the people who came in the
Yeah.
door in December and they got a layoff notice. And that's very interesting. And what's even more interesting that from talking to folks, the path to getting hired was very short for a short period of time. Like in last fall, people were getting hired 2 3 days.
Yeah.
And you didn't have to have a whole lot of tech experience to get hired at some of these companies, but then they end up getting let go. So I was like, do I have enough to get under another company with all of that? And a lot of these companies went through with the pay transparency, showed the pay scale, so to speak, and people were applying and and a lot of these were young people who want to make that move to tech, but yet now they'll let go. So where do you go from there? What is that going to look like for you? And how can you position that on your resume? What would you suggest if you had a short period of time and had experience for 3 months, but how would you market yourself
That's a
if
good
that were you today?
That's a good question. Depends. If let's say I worked at the same place for 10 years and then I had just a 3-month stint, I might leave it off the resume. But
Okay.
but then when I would have an interview, I would tell them, "Hey, I left such and such company after 10 years, tried this opportunity, didn't really whatever, and looking to go back to what I did previously," to spin it that way. If you had a job here and then 6 months and another 3 months, you probably should put it on there. And you're gonna have to have a good narrative because in the market we're in now, when you have all these companies that have been laying off, will probably continue to be laying off for the near term, hiring freezes, it's rough, so you
Yeah.
have to really be able to go into an interview and just bowl them over.
Yeah. Yeah. And you have to show that whatever experience you put on your resume, it's the experience you want to use to attract that particular company. That's why it's good to tailor your resume in that particular sense. Not every resume needs to be tailored that way, but I think if you're going to speak to it and you want to be a selling point, you have to dress it in some kind of way because they want to see proof, not the fact that you can do the hard work to get there. That's okay. But ultimately, if they're paying you a certain amount, show some kind of precursor to that skill or show the skill.
So let me ask this, what do you see what do you like, what are you seeing in the market, in the job market? What's your take? Do you think we're gonna be in this weird zone for the whole year? And I know these
It's
aren't fair
it's
because who knows?
it's hard. Is I think we swing so quickly here in America and in the American job market. It could be a hiring spree by the end of the year. It could very well be. But I think people can't go by you can't apply to what we foresee or what you foresee in the market. You can only apply for what's currently going on in the market. So that makes it really hard if that companies are posting profits, large profits 2 quarters in a row. I think it might be okay. So maybe I can ride with those companies and start applying those companies posting the profits and looks like it's getting better because I know that then they're going to start hiring in that respect. I think those who are keep losing and losing, you've got to kind of listen to the streets and see, okay, what exactly are they needing more than they're actually, if they fired most of their HR, don't go apply for a HR position. Go apply for something else. Or if they just got rid of their staffing or just got rid of their engineers in this particular new. I think a lot of it's just listening very carefully to what's going on with that company. And that's why it is better to target companies, not just the industry, because every company has its own nuance and you want to be acclimated to that. So Yeah, I think there's several things that would need to happen before you can actually start projecting your fears on the job market in the way you apply, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. And to your point about how it could change on a dime, it does happen that way. Because let's say we come at this from square one and we're in a kind of proxy war with Russia, basically, which could start World War III. We're engaging with China, which could be like World War III.
Yeah.
High inflation, record high inflation, high interest rates. We saw three banks closed down.
Mm.
Cryptocurrency platforms are being attacked by the SEC.
Yeah.
What else are we dealing with? We're dealing with the kind of crazy stuff
We're
we have.
dealing with Elon Musk's fear saying that, oh, we need to stop using AI now.
AI, what's that gonna do? So you have all that, like, you would think, and the worries about a banking crisis. So with all that, you would think that there'd be no hiring and the stock market
Mhm.
would plummet and we'd be like, but life goes on. It's weird. It's still going. So to your point, yeah, maybe we just wait it out and then it just turn around.
Yeah, next Friday should be really interesting when the job report comes
Mhm.
out. We should really see if there is one to see what industry is thriving. We know that hotel traveling, which collapsed in March of 2020, is now the hottest market job industry going right now because they're hiring. They're begging people to come off the street. And we're talking about not just travel and hotel, but we're talking about restaurants too. They really need people that I've gone to restaurants that they're understaffed.
Yeah.
You're waiting long times. Even if you have the app and you join the wait list, there's still they're lacking people. But yeah, how many people really want to go in the industries if you've been in tech? But having said that, there's tech in every industry. So
Yeah.
so you've got to be able to look at many different industries, see which skills apply to those industries, and then start targeting the companies that seem like that they're doing well enough to hire.
You have a great point there because historically, when you have these kind of recession-like kind of environments, it's usually the frontline workers and the
Mhm.
blue collar workers who get hit hardest. Now it seems like it's more of a white collar recession
Yeah.
where with tech and other college educated, advanced degrees, well paid people, those are the ones that are getting laid off in droves.
Yeah, yeah, they are. They are. Anyway, we know there's so much disruption. It could be discouraging. I think that people will need to lean into their strengths and offer that and try to be as marketable as possible. Because a lot of it, the secret is being able to let your skills be known and how it could be used for a company and go all in on that as opposed to trying to spread yourself out and try to appeal for everybody. I think can't say that enough in our industry. You and I have talked about that over the years, how significant that is to our job sector. So have you played around with chat GPT yet?
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, it's really amazing. Just this morning, I think I just typed in what impact is AI gonna have on the job
Mhm.
search? And then
Right.
and the crazy thing is you could do that and you see writing go shoom, 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 just like lightning
Mhm.
fast. You're like, how is
Yes.
this possible? And it gives you pretty good answers. Not perfect, not
Right.
amazing, but really good things to build upon. And but in addition to Chat GPT, I've played around with Dolly to make a talk to
Oh.
text pictures, which is
Mhm.
so cool. It's amazing. It's really
Yeah.
wild.
The software I use called Script. I edit my video, my audio, all my editing needs. They have a way they use AI. This is one way they use AI is that let's say I use a wrong word and I didn't mean this word. And I said that in audio conversation with you. I could go in overdub. It would take my voice and applied to that word. So I said that word instead of the unwanted word.
Right.
Isn't that the wildest thing? And this is new in the sense of the way through the last few updates for all that. So we could take this whole conversation on audio and create a whole new language. And then without knowing that language, we could go ahead and publish it in Chinese or publish it in Spanish. I
So
mean,
crazy.
that it would be our voices. That's the extent of AI. So I think people are going to start to discover what that means. But I think people also have to be very creative for their job search if they plan to use it, how it works. If you talk about how it works and that part of it, that's one way. But there's other creative means to use it or another to get information or to create content or to create something that's going to be useful for a company. You've got to be ahead of the game in that particular sense if you want to impress people. Because I think ultimately, those who, I don't think it's going to directly replace people. It will replace those who know the people who are users and have become experts at it, as opposed to people who don't get into it at all, despite their industry experience.
So what do you think? How do you think it would help job seekers? That they
Well, I think ultimately the difference between that and Googling is that Google or any kind of search on internet, it just gives you references. AI will give you the quick rundown.
yeah.
And like say, you write an article, I could follow these steps. That's what's great. Now, the stuff about writing resumes, uh, I probably would
Can you do that,
necessarily
you
like
think,
that.
with AI writing, or is it too hard because the way it's formatted?
There are people right now trying to use AI to write a resume and a cover letter. A lot of people that you and I hang out with
Yeah.
don't recommend that because it misses a personal touch. And I think there's a personal touch that can be felt if you get enough resumes, you can tell those who really spent the time putting their strengths and their personalities into it, as opposed to AI, which doesn't have a personality. They're just trying to be directive and informative.
See, I could see a cover letter, but not just doing it and letting it go, but then to tweak, like you were saying, tweak it, put some personality into it.
Yeah,
Resume, I'm not sh I don't know enough to say, but it just seems that would be harder to capture
I would.
because the format is so different.
Yeah, I don't think you could just cut and paste,
Yeah.
but I think you can. I did a vanity search on mine. In other words, I first, not Googled, I asked the chat, who's Mark Anthony Dyson? And he said, well, based on that, couldn't give me a real answer. But when I said, who's Mark Anthony Dyson, the voice of job seekers, then I got some stuff.
Oh, cool.
So I think people can check out their online reputation if you don't use any information, that's fine. Although, if people had said some bad things about you and you don't know, you could possibly
Wait,
find
this is getting good. Wait, I didn't know wait, I never let me understand. So you put in about yourself, so this way you find it.
right,
But then let's say I'm gonna meet you're the interviewer, right? I'm gonna meet with you.
right, yep,
So
you
then
know
I
where
could
to
put
go.
in, I'm going for an interview to meet Mark Anthony Dyson, vice president of IBM.
Yes,
What do I need to know? And then you can get, you think, all the information?
yeah, and I think even you could get more specific. You can get more specific. It says, "I'm meeting Mark Anthony Dyson, voice of people at
Yeah.
IBM. Where can I find him online? Or where can I find about his reputation or
Wait,
something of that sort?" And you can possibly get results on that.
so I'm gonna check the after the show, I'm gonna check it, I'm gonna play around like that because that's
Check it
I
out.
never even thought. See, this is what's crazy. I think as time goes on, more people are gonna think of all sorts of interesting things to do.
Yeah,
That would be a great help to just do your due
absolutely.
diligence before you go on an interview. Because then it could say, let's say you find out that, okay, the company you're interested in just had a layoff. All right,
Mhm.
maybe I don't want to go, or maybe they did something really shady, or whatever the case may be. You come really prepared.
Yeah. Yeah. And you could do that with everybody. And I think in that sense, you're just going to get the short blurb
Yeah.
unless there's a whole bunch of stuff someone did. If they were in the news, they're going to aggregating jobs. They're going to come up with a summary and get that summary, but you can use some of those words to go back to Google search to see if you could find out
Yeah.
more specific information. So you don't want to stop just their AI and what it says is giving you a great foundation at this particular point from where it's pulling from. You go back to Google and then you start to get a little bit deeper into what your query actually is.
How about this? Do you think For people who don't like writing, but are a little afraid to post on LinkedIn or social media, they could go through ChatGPT to just say whatever. Let's say you want to respond to somebody posted something on LinkedIn. Instead of having to write it yourself, you could just say, just talk to text and let it, and boom. And all of a sudden you got the content, copy, paste, and it's a good way to network and market yourself.
Let's get a little deeper because
Okay.
this is interesting. I Google myself on
Right.
a fairly regular basis just to see since I talk a lot and I write a lot, I'd
Mhm.
like to know some feedback. Google picks up now, as well as the other search engines, LinkedIn conversations you've had. Or
Oh, I
if
didn't know
you've
that.
read
Yeah.
or yeah, it's not on your first pages, it's been on my latter pages, and it picks up on pages, and it picks up in a weird way. Sometimes it'll pick up on a page where there's a hashtag being used, and it follows all the hashtags, and somewhere along that hashtag, when you go there, is the conversation that you were a part of,
Hmm.
or that you even liked, or that you put a short comment on. So at some particular point, I think Google or AI is going to be able to take that market that Jack Kelly said this in this conversation on LinkedIn. And I think it can get really interesting when you start to be able to pinpoint a conversation or something you said or somewhere you've been quoted and it shows up as on AI in that kind of way. Right now, it's just going to give you a general summary of what you might have said in an interview on Forbes, then you did something on Cheddar News, and then you reported both Business Insider. It's going to show the culmination of that.
It's really interesting. I'm starting to think of other ways that you could use it within the job search context. Clearly, you could send a thank you note. Because let's be honest, some of these things, like you should do something, but it's like a
Uh-huh.
pain in the butt to do it.
Right.
Okay. Do you have to do a thank you note? Yeah, maybe not. But you know what? If you have AI to say, hey, write me a thank you note for meeting with my Mark Dyson, boom, it's there and it just makes your life easier. Okay. Boom. Done it.
You want to put a personal touch on it as well,
But
right?
then
So
you can clean it up.
you'll have
Yeah.
there are some lazy folks out there who are just who are going to try to use the whole thing as a means of of doing the work for them. But AI is not meant to do the work for you. They're just there to give you a foundational view of it. And then you go in and then you got to add or just use that as intel as you go about and finding out the information you need to.
Yeah. Give you an example. This is interesting. So, like the day or two after GTP chat went out, I was like, I got to
Uh-huh.
play with this. So I wrote in quotes like three different articles, like job career related articles, and
Uh-huh.
I posted it. And I posted it as Jack.ai and had as a photo a little robot. So I figured, okay, maybe people would know. Oh, all right, this is something different. But it was like too new. And I
Uh-huh.
got a few people, about not a few, like a handful, "Huh, that's interesting." And they were trying to be polite. It was a polite way of saying,
Right.
"That kind of sucks what you're right. Like, what's up? Are you" literally, like, someone said, "Are you just phoning it in? What are you doing?" This
I think that's a part of it as well, is that people can get consent. You could tell.
people
You could tell.
smell like instantly. They were polite about it, but they were very
Right.
much, "Huh, this is different. This is odd." So you're right, without the human element, without the personalization, it does fall flat.
Right. You can look and see, you can check a company to see what their reputation is, to see what their see what the CEO, what his MO regarding hiring and what they look for, see what their philosophy is. You can also see if there's any dirt, perhaps, along the way. But again, you're just going to get a return result that gives you a general information, but it would be uh, the way to start things off. So I think it's going to work. It's going to work in that kind of way.
What do you think about the Goldman Sachs research that came out saying 300 million people are going to either lose their jobs or be impacted, or their lives will be or their work lives will be changed because of AI.
That I think I don't have a feeling for how that's going to look yet. It's conjecture with everything else. I have to say, I remember reading the article, but I remember to think that they talked about how there was going to be this great big recession, which really hasn't hit in the way that it's hit in the past. It's
Right.
been a splintered recession. That there are some industries that feel it. Our eggs went up, then it went back down, as opposed to with the way that jobs are going to be looked at and how there's some industries that are hiring, there's some that are laying off. So you got to look at what's going to matter to you the most.
Yeah, it's hard to tell, right? Because proponents of AI is gonna say, "No, it's great. It's gonna create all new jobs." People who are concerned are gonna be like, "I don't know if it's so great." But isn't that what happened throughout technology, throughout time? Horse and
Yes,
buggy to car, to so on forth. There's always a change.
there's always a change, and but there's always got to be people aren't always ready to pivot
Yeah,
the way that trends kind of reroute. So if we know that people are getting hired by having certain amount of skills, there's a lot of different ways to get that skill now, as opposed to before years ago, you only had several places you can go to a community college. You can try to get an apprenticeship if that applies to you. If you want to get into welding or something like that, you go in this very specific industry. Now you can take, some people are visual learners, so they can go on YouTube and gather how to code. And that's the kind of thing that we're seeing. And that's the kind of agility that people are able to have if they're able to, let's say, if they want to switch industries, if you're able to look and gather information that way, then that's the way you go. Or if you're able to read articles and get enough information and be able to put some of that in practice, like with video. I learned that all through the web. There's nothing that I didn't have to go to school for. As of some people, they're paying somebody $500 to learn how to do what I'd learned without it. So I think people are better to lean in more into what they learn and what they've experienced and to see how that will serve someone as opposed to if they can just do it or not. Look to how you can serve, how that can apply. And that will be something that will make more sense. If you listen to a general announcement and then you become scared, you're becoming scared without having enough knowledge, or you can become excited, but zeal without knowledge is a terrible thing too.
yeah. I think for job seekers and just for people who aren't job seekers, but maybe one day will, is that it's always changing, right? It's always evolving, changing. And you just have to keep abreast of what's new, what's out there. Some trends may just die out, some may just keep going.
Right.
So it's one of these things you have to be so vigilant, right? To make sure you know what's happening so you don't get left behind.
Yep. And I think that people don't pivot fast enough. I think when you hear something new, you hear about a skill, most people are waiting for somebody else that they know to take the first plunge in it and to tell them how to do it. Instead of trying to find it while it's in vogue, while it's still new, because that really increases your chances of being hired. Like with tech and with a lot of things, there's no college degree for a lot of the new tech that's coming up. There's no AI degree to get just yet because there was we saw it coming, we didn't see how it was coming. And we didn't know how it was going to look and what was going to look to the general public. So that's not a degree, but that doesn't mean you can't go try out all the different various softwares and forms of AI to see how you can fit into the market and search yourself into the market. Great discussion along those lines. I'll give you a chance real quick to talk about your latest article on TikTok. How did you decide to? I know you talk about TikTok trends you've been talking about for
Yeah.
the last 3 years at least, but now what relevance would this have for an average job seeker or somebody who is getting their advice from TikTok and relying on that information?
Yeah, is this the one that just core one, or is
Yes,
that
the
the,
Coco one. Yes.
or the bare minimum Mondays one? Or
And I thought that was a mistake too. I said, core? What is that?
no, that's what it is. Yes, and I'll transfer over. So a few weeks ago, I wrote something about some of the TikTok influencer trends like bare minimum Monday, try less Tuesday,
Yes, I remember
and
you
then
talking
we've
about that. Mhm.
yeah, then we've seen the acting your wage, the quiet quitting, all that stuff, which I think is very harmful for people because by doing so, you're not gonna you're not going to make yourself endearing to your company and boss. And when in an environment where there are a lot of layoffs, you want to do the opposite. You want to try so hard to
Right.
do the best and make yourself irreplaceable. You want to
Mhm.
be that go-to person. But then pivoting from there, because and just to take us, if you don't mind, if you can indulge me,
Go
to
ahead.
do a tangent.
Sure.
The government is trying to ban TikTok, and they're saying, "Hey, because China is stealing our data." And yeah, but so is our country stealing our data. So it's all right. I think it's
Companies will talk to stealing our data.
yeah, everyone's stealing data. Like everything, I'm sure you're the same way. Any site I go to, anything I do, I just assume my privacy is not my privacy. People are going to see
Right.
it. But hey, I think with TikTok, what they're afraid of is because it's owned by China, is that you could post things that if you put on a social media platform here in the US, probably they would take it down. Now, it doesn't mean it's something crazy, but it
Uh-huh.
may not be the narrative that they wanna talk about. You know what I mean? So, I found myself, like, yeah, checking it out because it's interesting because I find content I wouldn't find elsewhere. And this one thing I stumbled upon is this core trend. And basically, it's this really interesting niche within TikTok in which it in my opinion, the way it works, it's really focusing on this feeling, this zeitgeist of what people are going through, particularly young men. And what I'm finding and then how you go down a rabbit hole a little bit and you look into
Right.
things,
Uh-huh.
and I don't really realize it so much, but young men particularly are falling way behind. Way behind. And when I say falling behind, meaning that they're in their parents' basement playing video games, smoking weed, drinking too much, using opioids. And this is it's across the country. It doesn't matter what color you are, it doesn't matter what state you're living
Yeah.
in. It seems to be across the board where they're just lagging. They're pulling out of social engagements. They're not involved with any romantic involvement with people and it's really tough. And when these videos like spliced together really rapid fast with this sort of haunting music in the background that
Mhm.
evokes this feeling of sometimes happiness, but oftentimes fear, but not fear, a horror fear, but just
Right.
of what's going on with my life. Where am I
Mhm.
going? What is happening? I'm stuck. I don't have any friends. I don't have a romantic partner. I don't have a future. What do I
Right.
do? And it juxtaposes is real people telling their story intermixed with all sorts of fast cutting vignettes and videos of some that are very recognizable, movie stars and memes, whatever, others not. But
Right.
it really highlights that there's a whole segment that gets overlooked. And
Yeah.
these young men who are not employed, who don't have in the near term any chances of getting employed, and it's just gonna get worse. And that's
Mm.
problematic. That's really
That
problematic
is
on a lot of levels because it used to be turn back the clock 10, 20 years, you could graduate with a high school diploma, go to a factory, a manufacturing place,
mm,
get a job, you could get a house. Think back like World War II-ish. You can
right.
cut, these guys came back from World War II. They got a house in Levitville, Levittown in Long Island, got a
Mhm.
GI loan, you get a white picket fence, you get your car. Now you can't do that. If you
Oh,
don't have a college degree for a lot of people, the door is closed.
yeah.
And this is one of the things that people don't talk about. So I figured let me bring this to the forefront and report on it because this is a problem. It's a big issue. And the longer it goes on, the worse it's going to get. Because then also, and I don't mean, and this not be suitable for LinkedIn, but what happens if you have young men who have too much time on their hands and don't have anything to look forward to, they can be very dangerous.
Well, studies have said in the past that they're subject to being criminals and being paid permanently, which this speaks to. I think that young people come back from anything. If you're in your 20s, you can come back from not being employed before you're 25. It would just take you to 35 to get some traction and to understand now that this is a serious thing called life.
Yeah.
So I think in that regard, I think that those who I'm afraid that those who are falling, those young men who used to thrive and don't are in that situation now and don't see their way out, I think I worry about those because once you fall from the height that you have, and it could be from whether it doesn't matter what the salary range is, and you fall into that's where I get if you start out that way and then you there's still a chance I think to have more of epiphany. But we've seen all kinds of resilient stories throughout the years that people come back from anything. But I'm just wondering, as a parent, I can't imagine my sons being in my basement and playing games and just living off of whatever I do.
Yeah,
I just have those kind of feelings. I can't imagine it, but it's happening.
it's happening and the numbers, and I put in, like, the stats and the
Uh-huh.
data, so it's not as if so I used the core, which to me was really moving to see
Uh-huh.
on a different level, this is not a job search level, but on a level, there's so much pain out there. There's so many people
Right.
who are just hurt and wounded,
Mm.
but they don't know how to get past that. And that's really the sad part is
Right.
they're stuck in this rut that they can't get out of. And instead of trying to get out of it, they just somehow just dig deeper and it falls deeper.
Yeah.
And it's sad. But on top of that, by finding the numbers, it was staggering
Yeah.
how many like, the percentage of people who were young men working in their prime 10 years ago, 15 years ago, and where they
Mhm.
are now, it's so much lower.
Yeah.
Men are not going to college to the same degree that women are going to college. Men
Yeah.
aren't getting the same jobs as women are getting. So
Right.
women are just lapping men across the board, which God bless, is great for them. But at the same time, you don't want any sector, any group to just keep falling behind. You want to raise everybody up
Yeah.
to
It
participate.
But I just find it interesting too that is, and this is a sidebar in part, that women still remain very unpaid compared to men. Those studies do show true. I think they've gotten better and made advances over the past few years because there's so much information about salary negotiating before they wouldn't negotiate on a large scale. Not every woman, we're not talking about, so don't come at me. But I'm just saying, in essence, because they're thriving, they in college, there's also the question that is a college degree what it was when you and I were coming along. Does it have the same work there? Because people can go also get an apprentice and you have a much better starting salary than getting some of the degrees that are offered in universities. So there's that part of it. So I really think I wonder how much that will actually evolve. I just wonder too how much of that is really real. I'm going to take a look as I go through and see if I can check out some of those videos. But I'm just wondering how much of that is actually true, because I just don't know any young men like that. Not that but I haven't heard my sons talk about their generation, how there's a lot of them living in the basement. I do know that there is a severe underemployment issue that we've had in America for many years, and sometimes it's a choice. A lot of times it's not. There's a lot of questions, and I think people are going to, but I think that's something to watch though, because it could speak to some other issues that are people going through depression. Is depression more at the forefront really than it's ever had? Not just because people are talking more about it, but is there something in the water that we need to avoid, or some experience that we need to change, or
Yeah.
something along those lines?
Yeah, I think in part, like what happens, it's probably, and I don't know if you hear this, unfortunately, I'm working remotely.
Yeah, I hear.
And of course,
Yeah, I
so
know, right?
I guess we could edit this out or not. We got going live.
We'll try to work with it. We'll try to work it or work
So
it
I
right.
guess it depends on where you live in part two. If like you're in the Rust Belt and the manufacturing jobs are gone, what do you do? And then you don't have the money to move somewhere. If you
Right,
come from maybe a broken home and no one is there to teach you what to do and how to get a job and what you're left on your own, some could do
right.
it, some can't. So I don't think it's a one size fits all. I think there are different unique circumstances.
Yeah. Yep, I think they are, and I think people will I guess we'll see. I think it's a wait and see at this particular point. Let's talk about something happy like your book, Happy and Succeeding at Work. I didn't put it on the ticker. I'm sorry, I didn't get ticker, but I'm gonna get you up the bottom third up. And how's that going? And are you starting to have more conversations surrounding it? Oh,
Oh my God.
yeah.
This is terrible.
Timing is everything around here.
Unbelievable. For people who don't live in the suburbs, this may be hard to believe, but this is a regular occurrence if you hear it here. The leaf blower guys all day, all the time. I don't understand. There's not enough leaves to blow.
Right?
God forbid they have a leaf on their lawn. They have to be out for an hour chasing that leaf down. Nuts.
It sounds a little bit better.
It's nuts. I'm sorry. So you're,
Your book.
you know, what I tried to put together is basically a how-to guide,
Uh-huh.
like what to do across the board. Everything from thinking about is it time to leave and look for another job, what to do before you look for another job, how to interview, what are some of the interview questions you have to be prepared for, what to do when you're going through salary negotiations, how do you handle a counter offer. So figure it's just what a place that gives you a guide and
Yeah.
advice from a guy who's been doing this for 25 years, who's placed thousands of people, hired people from my own company, had to let go people from my own company. So I've seen it real. So this is not theory. This is like
Right.
practical stuff that I've seen time and time again. So I
Mhm.
figured, hey, this is the value I could offer to people by saying, hey, this is what goes on behind the scenes. When you
Right.
meet with HR, you probably have a different conversation than when you meet the hiring manager, or then when you meet the 5 other people who are just tangential, but you gotta sell them on you as well. So it's
Right.
all these things sometimes that you don't think about
Mhm.
because being intimately involved with the whole process for so long can walk you through what's gonna happen, what to expect, what are the pitfalls, what you can do to succeed, what kind of things you're gonna do that you're gonna just blow up your chances.
Mhm.
And just try made it very user friendly, very easy to read, very straightforward.
No, I actually I'm hoping you'll have an Audible version of
I didn't
it.
think I should do that. It's a good idea.
Yeah, I would definitely
I'm gonna do
I
that.
li
I didn't even
I've been
dude, I didn't even
listening
think
to
of that.
yeah, I think it'd be great if it was Audible,
Yeah.
even if it was read by somebody else other than you, though I'd rather hear you. I know I know the collections that you had.
Yeah. I get very excited. So, yeah, that makes it more entertaining, more
Right.
interesting.
Anything you got coming up that people should know about?
What am I doing? I'm at an inflection point with my life to figure out what to do. I'm too young to retire, but I'm itching to do so after doing something for 25 years, it's like, all right, I want to try some different things. I've been writing, which was really cool. So that's
Right.
awesome. And we started doing podcasts, but I don't know. I'm trying to figure out like what that next step is. Like a lot of people,
Yeah,
I
sure.
think post pandemic, I think we all went through it thinking, oh my God, life is short. It could happen. And do I want to keep doing the same thing for 25 years? What do I do? How do I navigate it? How do
Well
I build upon what I've done? So I
You
think
can
like a lot of people, right?
get somebody else to run your company. Go to Singapore for 6 months near
But
the water.
that's the thing to figure out because right now recruiting is slow. I'm a very transparent guy. I'm not going to pretend it's definitely
Yeah,
slow.
yeah.
And it, for me, it's the wild card. It could actually heat up because with all the, and this is sound horrible, but with all the banking problems and the banking crisis, that's actually good for me because I place these people in compliance and legal and risk and audit and anti-money laundering. So when the SEC and FINRA and the CFTC and the Department of Justice, when they all start investigating, that's when the companies wake up and say, "Oh my God, we got to hire people because, uh-oh, what do we have in our company? Is there anything we have to worry about?" And
Right,
that's what they hire. So the part of me is like, "Hey, this could be huge." And again, it sounds crass. So you don't want to say, hey, it's good news. If someone's
right,
bad news is my good news, but I'm
right,
being open and honest. You know what I mean? That's
right.
how it plays out.
That's the way it works. Yeah,
But at the
I
same
get it.
time, even then, like, what else is there? What else can I do? And I think, once again, I think a lot of people going through that post
Sure,
pandemic. You realize
sure.
your time is short, your life is short and precious. And like, where can you give the most impact and the most meaning?
Yeah, I think the lulls in employment make people more creative,
Yeah.
sometimes for the good, sometimes for the not so good.
Yeah.
So I like to see that. Like I've become more creative. Like I've been delving into the video aspect a whole lot more.
Yeah. I like the video, like where you superimpose upon an article. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. I thought that was pretty cool doing that yesterday. I'll probably do that again, even though, like I told you, not many people have looked at it. But I did write an article. I don't know if you saw it. It was 50 practical modern job search tips you need today.
A pretty hefty that was a lot of content, yes.
Yeah, I wanted it to be relevant because I used to publish a large ebook every year. I stopped last year. It wasn't something that but I had, just so people know, when you get, it's not just 50 drop off tips. I dig into many of the tips and I go into pretty good detail. And I didn't see that much of anywhere else. So I want to provide that. I publish it on the blog and I publish it on LinkedIn. I'll probably publish it on another place or two, and I'll probably break out to some other content as well. But yeah, I had fun writing that. It didn't take me as long as that because I guess these days in writing so much like you, it's not hard to write 4,000 words. It really isn't. It's just a matter of, for me, it was a scrutiny of, okay, what's more relevant than others? Because in the past, I had a ebook. The last one I published was 421 modern job search tips. And I said, probably, I went up, like, I published it for 4 years and I went up 100 every year. And I said, nobody's not going to read 5 because they don't read 500.
It's a lot.
Yeah, it's too much. So I cut down to 50, but I gave it more depth and added more value. So I hope people will find use for it there. Any parting words before we take off here? I want to be sure that we can probably get back together again sometime next
Yeah.
month and keep our eyes on these stories that we talked about.
I think the parting words for both job seekers and people who are currently employed is that we don't know how long this weird time frame is going to be with hiring freezes and layoffs and uncertainty. Number one, you definitely want to make yourself valuable at the company, even if you're not terribly happy. That doesn't mean like you're kissing the butt of your boss. You want to work hard, make yourself seen, make yourself known, contribute, make things happen. If you're working remotely and you're not, people are going to hate me for saying this, go into the office 5 days a week. You want to be seen, you want to be
Right.
known, because then you have a better chance of staying employed, because that's the key. When you're in a tough market and you're in between jobs, it could take 3, 4, 5, 6 months, depending on the level.
Absolutely.
So you want
Absolutely.
to hold on to the job. But simultaneously, as you're doing everything to hold on to that job, you
Mhm.
want to hedge your bets. Find some recruiters who specialize in your space. Find some career coaches, some resume writers. Build, if you haven't already, build and cultivate a network who could help you. So this way, if God forbid you lose your job, you're not starting from square one. You have a whole support system. Your recruiters who are giving you leads for jobs, your network giving you leads for jobs, someone helping you how to do an elevator pitch, someone to beef up your resume and your LinkedIn profile. So this way you're not panicking because you already have that in place. So then either A, you have your job and you keep going until you find something, or if you
Mhm.
lose it, you don't have to freak out because you already have everything set up. So
Right.
I would say, even though it sounds weird that they're two completely different tracks, but you want to pursue them at the same time just in case.
Oh, yeah, that's great advice. I would say at this particular point, it's a great time to do one or two things. The free thing that you could do is complete your profile on LinkedIn, start to join industry groups that matter the most to you, where you
Yeah.
can see where your career is going, and follow the hashtags that you can engage in conversations and be a part of, just to become, if you're learning something new, become acclimated to the lingo, to the culture of the profession, but also follow companies that you might be interested in, to see if you might have a second tier connection to, so that maybe you could start engaging, even if you're not looking now, start engaging in those conversations, find out how you could be helpful to them. So down the line, they can return the favor in a sense. I would say maybe 6 months to a year in that kind of way. Some people can talk themselves into any situation. I think all in all, it's about the relationship. The paid thing you should do is get into an industry organization or association, because a lot of times and I've seen it, where people would say, "Hey, I'm about to leave this company to go to this company." That can mean two things. One, if you know the person, they can help you to either company. So that could be two possible jobs right there. But also, you can also find out if there's, and this is where, if you're participating in the committees, you're looking at the industry magazine, see what the trends are in the magazine. you could be informed because the closer you will monitor those situations and that you're involved in those conversations, the more likely it's going to be easier for you to find a job through those conversations later on. I
That's great
definitely favor
advice.
it. I think those are two ends as a paid. I advise doing both if you can. I know it's investment. You can also get some of that written off if you like traveling, professional development. That's you're able to get that off of your taxes. So you could bring that to your taxes, including what you eat, et cetera, et cetera. So all those kind of things, take a look at it from a holistic point of view and then start to dial in what's going to matter to you the most and where you can get in, where you can fit in and where you can grow. We'll leave with that.
That's great
Jack,
advice.
thanks for coming back.
Oh, it's great catching up with
Podcast.
you, man. We got to
Yes.
keep doing this again.
Yes, April. We'll do it
All
sometime.
right.
April. If that's okay.
That's
I'll check with Christine.
how crazy is that? That's right around the corner, April. It's
I
like you hear
know.
April, like, oh, that's the future. Like, wait, no,
Yeah.
that's
April, early May, I'll be busy.
uh,
Like I told you, I hope to be on vacation, but we'll
yeah,
see how that goes.
awesome.
But yeah, that's the deal. Thank you very
Oh,
much for those who are watching. Okay, Bob, do you want to add something else?
yeah, I was gonna say, hey, thanks for having me on. This is great, man. It's so wonderful
Yeah.
catching up again.
Yeah, I know. And I've gotten comments back that when we did Job Seeker Nation, we were like the first to do that particular format. It's like everybody start to follow. Here's the format again.
Yeah.
We talk about different topics and we dive into it, and we're able to talk more than an hour on it. We're going on to about hour 15 minutes.
We can keep going, right?
Which is good. You know, so I might splice it up just a little
Sure.
bit, but other than that, yeah, it's going to be great. Thanks.
Excellent.
again,
Take care.
Jack. The rest of you all, peace and the value of love.
Thanks.
See you next time on the Voice of Jobs in this podcast.